1. Upload choice. AI repaired your audio, drafted a title, and made a realistic storm approach a real town. Does that storm need a label? Most creators reach for the wrong shortcut. They either label every tool out of fear, or they hide a realistic fake because the edit looks polished. Neither move puts the viewer first. The useful question is much narrower, and by the end you'll be able to answer it before you press publish.
The record is narrower than the rumors. YouTube requires disclosure when artificial intelligence makes a real person appear to say or do something they didn't do, changes footage of a real event or place, or generates a realistic scene that never happened. Those are separate examples, but each can leave a viewer with a false belief about the real world.
One question first. If a reasonable viewer saw the result without your editing timeline, would they believe a person said it, an event happened, or a place looked that way? If the answer is yes, you've moved beyond harmless production help.
That's why a script draft and a fabricated weather clip don't belong in one bucket. YouTube specifically lists assistance with outlines, scripts, thumbnails, titles, captions, audio repair, and idea generation as examples that don't automatically need disclosure. A tool can help make a video without creating a realistic false record.
Notice the discipline here. We aren't trying to decode every model name or predict a secret algorithm. We're classifying the finished material. What does it depict? How realistic is it? What could the viewer reasonably conclude? That's a defensible process because it follows the published examples instead of turning a platform setting into folklore. It also gives a small team a shared language for the hard cases.
And the label isn't a scarlet letter. YouTube says disclosure itself doesn't limit audience or monetization eligibility. A transparent answer can be the responsible answer without being a confession that your video lacks value.
Erica, let us make the first pass even more usable. If the shot is realistic, pause before you ask what the tool did. Ask what a viewer will take away in the first 3 seconds. A viewer can't see your prompt, your source folder, or your good intentions. They see a finished claim. That's why the same creator can use AI responsibly in one shot and need a disclosure in another. Send this to the editor on your team who's been told that every AI touch makes a video unsafe. The policy is more precise than that. In the next room, Professor Adiemi helps us test the voice clone and real event examples. Then we'll open the exact upload control that records the choice. Would you rather over-label a harmless edit or under-label a realistic fake? Before we keep going, one small favor that actually moves the needle. If this is landing for you, tap like, then subscribe and turn on the bell so you do not miss the rest. 2 taps, completely free, and it pushes this in front of more people who need it. Professor Adiemi is here because edge cases are where people start guessing. We need a test that survives a real upload, not a slogan.
Use 3 questions. Was the material generated or meaningfully altered with artificial intelligence? Does it look or sound realistic? Could it make a viewer misunderstand a real person, a real event, a real place, or believe a realistic scene occurred? If all 3 answers are yes, disclose.
That sounds almost too tidy. Take a cloned voice. A creator says it's only audio, not video. Does that change the question?
No. If the result makes a real person appear to give advice or say something they didn't say, YouTube lists that as a disclosure example. The medium isn't a loophole. Ask what a listener could reasonably believe about the person.
Now compare that with restoration. Removing background hum from a recording can improve a real audio track without inventing a statement. YouTube includes audio repair among the examples that don't require disclosure. The distinction isn't whether the sound is polished, it's whether the edit creates a believable false statement.
What about a realistic animation of a storm near a real city? If it never happened, the viewer could read it as a weather event. That's why the setting exists.
Calling it an illustration doesn't repair a footage-like impression.
Lewis is right about the impression. A realistic depiction can be useful, but if it borrows the authority of a real event or place, it needs an honest upload answer rather than a clever caption.
Exactly. The right answer isn't to abandon useful visuals. It's to mark realistic synthetic depictions honestly, especially when they borrow the credibility of a real person, event, or place. The viewer gets context before they mistake an illustration for evidence.
The on-screen control isn't hidden in your title or description. During upload, go to Attributes and answer the AI use question. That's the platform's stated disclosure path. Keep a short note beside the project so your answer can be explained later without reconstructing a week of edits from memory.
That note should say what changed, what source material you started with, and why the completed scene passed or failed the 3 questions. It's not legal paperwork. It's ordinary editorial discipline.
Before we get to the automatic label case, save the short version of the test. AI assistance alone isn't the trigger. Realism alone isn't the whole trigger. The decision turns on whether realistic generated or altered media could make viewers misunderstand a person, event, place, or scene. Lewis, that's the part a rushed upload needs to get right. What would a reasonable viewer believe from this finished frame? Professor Ademi, you broke the tie. Classify the viewer's likely understanding, then use the actual attribute setting. That gives us a clean record to build next.
There is one last complication. YouTube says it may apply a label automatically for its own generative tools, content containing C2PA metadata, or content its systems detect as generated or altered. So a deliberate workflow includes checking the result, not assuming an unchecked box settles everything.
Build a publish record that's small enough to use. For every realistic artificial intelligence scene, list the source material, the alteration, the realism risk, and the answer you chose. If the shot is an invented realistic event, say so. If it's production assistance such as a title draft or audio repair, record why it did not create a false record.
This is the part that scales. A creator doesn't need a giant compliance department to make a thoughtful decision. They need a repeatable note and a moment of human review before publish. Automation can organize files. It can't decide what a real viewer is likely to believe.
One question first. When should you slow down? Slow down whenever a scene borrows real-world credibility. A familiar face, a local landmark, a news-like clip, or a convincing voice can carry more meaning than the editor intended.
That's the standard I would use. When a scene can change a viewer's understanding of a person, event, or place, treat it as an editorial claim. Verify the source, decide whether it's realistic synthetic material, and disclose when the published rule calls for it. Accuracy isn't the opposite of creativity. It's what lets creativity earn trust. Maya's point is the practical boundary. Automation may help organize a review, but it can't know the meaning your audience assigns to a recognizable landmark or voice. Put a human review before the export is final. If a visual reads like evidence, treat it with the care you would give any other factual claim.
No tool mentioned here is paid or sponsored. These are educational examples, and the rule doesn't belong to a brand. Whether you use a local editor, a cloud service, or YouTube Studio alone, the final upload choice still belongs to the person who understands the scene and its likely effect on viewers.
If YouTube applies a label automatically, don't panic or hide it. Review the content and the upload answer against the help guidance. The point isn't to outsmart a label. The point is to make the record match what the audience is actually seeing and hearing.
Here is the anchor to keep. Disclose realistic artificial intelligence that could mislead a viewer about reality. Keep ordinary production assistance in proportion. That's not a loophole and it's not a punishment. It's a clear, viewer-first publishing decision.
Let us finish with the 2-minute drill that makes this practical. It happens after the rough cut is complete, when you can see what a viewer will actually encounter rather than what your editing timeline says you intended. Professor Ademi, walk us through the first pass.
Pause on every realistic generated or meaningfully altered frame. Don't start by naming the tool. Name what the frame depicts: a recognizable person, a real event, a real place, or a scene that looks as though it occurred. Then write one sentence about the likely viewer inference. That's the evidence you need to make a calm upload decision.
One question first. What if the frame is a reconstruction that teaches something true? A history explainer may need an image no camera ever captured. Are we telling creators to stop using reconstructions?
No, a reconstruction can be useful and honest. The problem begins when its realism quietly borrows the authority of documentary evidence. Tell viewers what it's when that context changes the claim, and use the AI disclosure setting when the finished media fits YouTube's rule. The goal isn't to make visuals timid. The goal is to keep a useful visual from becoming a misleading record.
Here is a concrete production example. Imagine a tutorial about storm preparedness. A creator uses a generated image of flooded streets because no local footage is available. If the frame is clearly an illustrative reconstruction and the narration says so, the viewer has context. If it's cut like breaking footage from a named neighborhood with no explanation, it can create a false understanding of a real place. Same subject, very different viewer experience.
So the record should preserve the source too, not just the final answer. Generated flood illustration, not local footage. Realistic scene tied to a real neighborhood. Disclose. That's much stronger than someone remembering 3 weeks later that an image looked dramatic.
Yes. Keep it short enough that you will actually use it. Source material, what changed, the possible viewer inference, and the yes or no conclusion. If a teammate exports the video or uploads it later, they should be able to understand the decision without guessing. This is ordinary editorial handoff, not a ritual designed to impress a platform.
There is another benefit. A compact record makes your own creative choices sharper. You notice when a dramatic synthetic shot is carrying more factual weight than your source material can support. Then you can replace it, label it, or rewrite the narration before viewers meet it. The best correction happens before publish, while the project is still easy to change.
And this is where the monetization rumor falls apart. YouTube says disclosure by itself doesn't limit audience or affect monetization eligibility. So selecting yes when it's warranted isn't choosing lower reach. It's choosing a record that matches the finished video. A useful channel can't build trust by treating transparency as a penalty.
But a label doesn't magically make a thin video good. It answers one disclosure question. You still need original analysis, sourced claims, an honest title, and an edit that actually helps the person who clicked. Those are quality decisions, and no upload toggle can make them for you.
That's the durable line. Human judgment decides what a viewer needs to understand. Tools help you make the work. The published policy guides the upload answer. Keep those jobs separate and the process becomes less anxious. You're not policing every piece of software. You're taking responsibility for the realistic claim your finished media makes.
Before you publish your next video, review the finished frames. Write down any realistic alteration, run the 3 questions, and use the attribute setting deliberately. No tool named here is paid or sponsored. These are learning examples, while YouTube's published guidance is the reference for your final call.
Maya, this isn't about making your workflow slower for its own sake. It's about making one deliberate decision while the edit's still in your hands. That small review protects the viewer from confusion and protects you from having to explain a choice you made in a rush.
A checklist prevents the 2 opposite mistakes. One creator may mark every small production assist as risky because they have heard any AI use is dangerous. Another may treat a realistic fake as harmless because the software made it quickly. Neither approach is careful. The record makes you look at the completed scene, name its likely effect, and give the platform the answer that matches the material. That's what keeps the workflow useful when the next video uses different tools and different visuals.
If this gave you a cleaner workflow, subscribe for the next Creator Lab. We're building the habits that make an AI-assisted channel more useful, more original, and easier for viewers to trust. Which realistic scene in your current workflow would you now review differently before publishing? Make the choice with evidence, and I will see you in the next one.